Welcome to today's Premier Experts, your one-stop shop to find industry experts in a variety of niches. My name is Ray Perez, and I'm a global branding expert. I travel the world speaking to entrepreneurs and business owners, and we've created this show to take advantage of their wealth of knowledge. I interview experts across different fields to learn what has made them become successful. When you interview people from a wide range of industries, those points of views brought together can create massive success for your business. Welcome back to today's Premier Experts. I'm your host, Ray Perez, and today my special guest, Saen Higgins, the Financial Educator and Wealth Strategist. Welcome to the show, Saen.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for you to be on the show because you've been in the industry for a very long time, and I'd like you to kind of share with the audience, how did you get started?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. I actually got started by accident. So long story short, I was going to school for not very long, and then I was in an accident. I was working at a job where my brother worked, and somebody came driving up, and they were driving a phenomenal car. And it's kind of like that movie out of, with Will Smith, The Pursuit of Happiness. And I looked at the guy, I literally said, "What do you do?" And he says, "I'm a stockbroker." And I said, "But that's what I've always wanted to be." And he says, "Well, you'd be really good." We had a longer conversation for the sake of time, but, and he said, "You'd be really good." So 2 weeks later, he called me up and I had an interview at a brokerage firm. And I looked at my brother and I go, "What do you think I should do?" He goes, "Go for it." And so I went, I got the job. I was really good at it, and that started my whole career within the financial industry. I went on to New York Life and started working at New York Life, and it was really interesting. I think because I was an outsider and really wasn't trained to come into that industry, and I don't want to say get conspiratorial, but like brainwashed, so to speak, all I saw was you were only incentivized is if you sold the company product, sold the company line. And I was like, well, wait a second, there's this over here. They're like, yeah, but, And then I started seeing these products out there that were really good for our clients, but they weren't good for us to sell them. Does that make sense? And so there was kind of a conflict of interest for me. And then a friend of mine introduced me to a strategy where we could acquire properties around the country for pennies on the dollar. And I had to do that. I went and did that. I started helping and teaching people how to do that. And that's how I became this wealth strategist, because not only did I get really good at doing these real estate deals and help thousands matter of fact, more people in this particular strategy than anybody on the planet on how to do this, and learned how to speak to large audience and really motivate people to change their lives financially. But I developed different strategies. Again, all of them seemed to circle around that whole thing where the industry really wasn't motivated or benefited to sell that. But these were all things that were good for us.
Now, you've been in the real estate industry for over nearly 30 years at this point. Yeah. So can you share some of your strategies that you've learned over the years?
Well, for the sake of time, I know we don't have a lot. I mean, we have a lot of programs that go into real details on this. Let's put it this way. I just got a property about 3 months ago. It was about $210,000 of fair market value on it. We only paid $37,000 for it.
Wow.
Even in this hot market that's going on right now. And we've had this technique. It's been around for 200 years. This isn't some, flash in the pan type of a deal. The only thing that's changed, was really interesting, since I started doing these deals in 1994, is the technology around it. So the counties don't change, you know what I mean? And the properties don't change. It's how we get the information. And I don't want to date myself, but understand when I first started doing these things, there was no internet. We didn't have cell phones. And yeah, all of that stuff has progressed, but you would think that would actually eliminate the opportunity within that strategy. It only increased it. Right now, we're doing more deals and making more money than we did in 1994. It's amazing.
Now, you're not only doing these deals for yourselves, you're also teaching others how to do these deals, correct?
Yes, very interesting question, because we thought that we would teach a few people these strategies and then everybody would learn them and would go on. And, you're young. And we realized that we kind of had that 10,000 hour concept. We were so far ahead of everybody on it that you don't stop getting better.
Yeah.
I've got 30 years of experience, and the crazy thing is I'm continuing to learn more, like we were talking about off air, just new strategies in something I've been doing 30 years. So we not only cook our food, we eat it without throwing up, so to speak. So we do the deals, which affords us to really teach in depth on these with me and my team because we're doing them and we're talking about what we just did, similar to the strategy I talked about earlier. And so with that whole real estate thing, one of the things I like to tell people is I don't like to get the impression is I got to where I'm at financially because of that strategy. It's kind of like the famous Amos cookie that we were talking about earlier. If you gave somebody the recipe but failed to tell them there was a $5,000 oven that you had to have in order to have success, you're really not doing them any favors. So what I had to really kind of morph into the training was not just the real estate strategies, but all the strategies that I was incorporating to not only make the wealth but keep it.
That's a very important point to make, right? Because some people see this particular strategy and they see someone's success and their financial revenues and they think that this is the only reason and they don't realize all the other moving pieces behind it. I know we talked about that earlier. So can you kind of share some of the other strategies besides figuring out how to get these properties at these great
Absolutely.
deals?
I mean, and that's so critical to understand. And it's also a frustrating point of any industry out there when you see people under the impression that they have to just do this, like these flip this house shows. I know those shows. I mean, there's no reality about those reality TVs whatsoever, right? They've got all the product offline and they, have this whole drama that's created in there, and that's just not realistic. Yeah, problems come up, but what I found is also this. A number of years ago, probably 15 years ago, I was having a conversation with a mentor of mine who's just super incredibly intelligent when it comes to money, and his question to me was just fascinating. It was Christmas time. We were down in Panama, and we're talking business, and he says, "What's one of the biggest problems you're having?" I said, "Oh, that's easy. My retirement account." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I want to do more deals, real estate deals in my retirement account, but it's almost like an act of Congress to get these third-party administrators to do these deals." And he goes, oh yeah, you just set up a self-directed 401k. I go, "Oh, what?" He goes, I came from New York Life. So to me, and I specialized in retirement accounts when I was at New York Life. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, didn't you know?" He says, "You can actually be the administrator and the trustees and there's no chargebacks or costs from the government whatsoever." I'm like, hello? I mean, I immediately set one of these up. And so I started doing deals, real estate deals in my retirement account. I'm the one that's signing for it. And it even got better than that. So now I've got free and clear real estate in my retirement account. This is where it got really good. And then he goes, "Well, why aren't you leveraging any of that?" And I'm going, "Okay, what?" This is like a couple years later, right? So then he tells me, not only can I have this free and clear real estate that's paying me rental income from there in my retirement account with no tax consequences, but I can leverage that. What that means is I can go to the bank, they'll do a non-recourse loan. Let's say I take a $500,000 loan, go do more deals with my strategy. Because I used the asset that was in a retirement account, all the profits go back into my retirement account with a zero tax consequence.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's like putting your retirement on steroids. I get goosebumps even talking about it. And it was funny. So I'm in Los Angeles, I'm teaching this class, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there. This is about 12 years ago to the students. Because again, I'm teaching what I do.
Of course.
And this guy, John, I'll never forget, he's got his name tag on, and he's an older guy, he's standing up, big guy, and I thought he was going to charge me or something. He goes, "Where do I get this, and how much does it cost?" Well, I didn't have any systems for that. I just told him to go back and see my staff, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at him. And that's when I talked to my friend, my mentor, and said, "We need to set up this company to set this up," and it absolutely exploded. I mean, people are blown away that you can do this. But again, it goes back to this. It's not in the financial industry's best interest to let you know that you can be your own administrator and own trustee.
Of course.
Because their whole premise is money under management. It's not money under doing good.
Correct.
So if you're not
under your management.
Right, under your management. Because if it's under my management and I don't know, I switch out. And so it's really interesting, the journey we've had to go down setting up these accounts and the resistance we've got from some of the big banks out there. And I'm not going to mention any name, but if I had a wagon with a bunch of horses pulling it through the desert, these people sent out memos not even allowing some of our students to open accounts at their bank because they didn't like the fact that they were managing them.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. So we got a hold of a bank. This guy knew exactly what we're doing. The owner, and he and I sat, we had several meetings, and he said, "I want to do these." And he's been just a great partner with us. In fact, it morphed into the fact that we're now doing IRAs. For those that don't have maybe more assets to do, we're rolling IRAs, but we're exclusive on those. So what we did with those is said, okay, let's do IRAs. And let's do this exclusively because we found a lot of people wanting to get into the cryptocurrency market. Again, there's another field that the financial industry is, they don't have any control over it. So of course it was attractive to me. And so I've been involved in that since the very beginning. And not so much on the crypto trading side of it, the blockchain technology fascinated me. I mean, it is, if anybody's watching this and I need to know cryptocurrency. Yeah, you need to understand why it's so fascinating. And then the other side makes sense. And that's for another conference. But so we were able to sit there and I talked to this bank and he said, yeah, we can absolutely do that. And so that's, again, we've got your mom and pops out there. I mean, just helping people get to the financial dream of what they have. And that's really what it's all about. I don't need to find somebody that has a lot of money and help them with that. They've got a lot of people out there for that. What I really love, what really moves me with my 25 years of teaching people live and in conferences all over the world is when I go back to a conference, and this is even better than the people I know. Somebody comes up to me and goes, you probably don't remember me, but 4 years ago, I went to a conference and boom, 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 and they tell me the whole story. And I've had some moving stories. There was a couple that are students of ours that got involved like 10 years ago. They ran into some tragedy with their family, right here in Florida. And their son had died in a tragic accident. And usually that's not good for a couple. But they stayed together and they came back to our conference about 10 years later. And it was like a light bulb went on. They'd forgotten they even got involved. So I don't care when that restart button is or the why you didn't get involved. We've always been there to help people out to find their dreams. But that's always what's moved me. Is those and those are those don't happen. They happen all the time, but they can't happen too many times. Does that make sense?
Correct. There's never a time that you can hear how you made an impact in someone's life and get tired of it.
Right, because as you know, with what you do with the branding and what have you, you're doing it because you're impacting people's life. There's a reward that happens on that. And sometimes people like you get involved in the minutia of running a business and looking at the strategies. And it's always good for a reminder when you hear those things happen.
Well, I love that because obviously I'm in a different industry, but I have that same coaching, speaking, doing events, and making an impact in others' lives experience. And that really reminds me because some people might say, well, Sean, if you're making all this money doing these properties and all these deals, why are you teaching other people? Why aren't you doing it for yourself?
Oh, I love that question. Yeah. First of all, I am doing it for myself. Number one. Number two, that would be like asking Steve Jobs if he's making so much money, then why is he continuing to do, the whole Apple thing before he passed? I mean, that's what gets me going. I've had opportunities on several times in the last 25 years to go, I'm good. But then, it kind of pulls me back in because I got this strategy. And, to pat myself on the back a little bit, I've gotten really good at teaching the strategy. So here's something that I've kind of, with that question, come to realize. Right now in this country, we're in the best country in the world with the best technology at the best time in human history.
Yep.
There are no excuses.
Yep.
I can effectively teach more people, me, not my staff, I can effectively teach more people than I've ever been able to do in my life. And I know more than I ever have in my life. That would be, and we're living longer. I'm thinking to myself, why would I not do that? Because I see some people come into the industry that are doing some of this stuff with the taxes. I'm going, that's, not exactly what goes on. So why would I not share that information and continue to help people? And like I was telling you off camera about the new strategy that we just learned, that's not new to the technique. It's just, we just saw it for the first time. We're constantly seeing things like that. Why would I not share that with people? And it's great because I'm working deals with some students right now that, I'm seeing them come out of their shell. Like this one goes, I've got a couple of deals, and we start. This is in the desert back out west, and I said, Alex, I want to do these deals. I said, but I don't want to do 3. He goes, I knew you were going to say this. I go, I'll do 10, and that's it. We have to do 10, otherwise I can't do this. And so it's funny because it's to me, for you and me, that's natural. Mm-hmm. But we're in this process. We're looking at the properties. We're securing the deals. We're getting the builders involved. This is a different type of a project. And he finally, we're having breakfast one morning. He says, I don't think you realize how scared to death I was doing. And I didn't. I was like, well, what do you mean? And you said you want to do a deal. I'm not going to do just one. Why wouldn't we do 10 if it's going to work, And sometimes I have to take a step back, but it's always good to do that too. Because he was riding the energy of I know what I'm doing. He was confident that I knew what I was doing. So if I tell him to do whatever, he's going to run enthusiastically in the right direction. And like you, with your systems and everything with branding, it's not a matter of if it works, it's follow the steps.
System,
yeah, don't deviate from this. And I'm the same way. And I always gravitate towards those students that just do what I tell them to do, when I tell them and how I tell them. And they'll get the results. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. Well, and so you are teaching these different courses, you have programs, you have seminars, you do coaching, you have a mastermind group, and you've authored a book. Can you share a little bit on that?
Yeah, the book is really kind of a culmination. I had one back in about 12 years ago, and I kind of blew the dust off of that and redid it. And again, it was really interesting because the techniques haven't totally changed, but the technology has made it simpler to do it from afar, if you will. Does that make sense?
Of course.
And so I did that, and that's been but I've also peppered in there the retirement stuff, and how that's changed the game, strategies that go beyond just the real estate side of it, because what I found with my students that have had all this success is they sometimes are a little surprised because, you're doing these things and all of a sudden, oh, I've got this. It's the travel, it's the lifestyle, it's all those things that, as you and I both know, go along with that. And you've got to navigate some things. So there's, like I said, some of the crypto trading and stuff like that, I go and seek out the best people in anything, and I bring them under my tent, just like I did with Michael Haas in the retirement. I mean, this guy has been doing them for 38 years.
Yeah.
And he I feel sorry for CPAs because they have to specialize in so many things. That's what his niche was. So I found the best person within that particular industry. I made sure their systems were in order, just like you do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so, I'm finding this guy that's on Bloomberg and CNBC doing these trading, that's got these deals with a Coinbase where his algorithms are coming in there. So, why go out and reinvent the wheel with some of this stuff? And that's one of the things that I learned early on. Find the people that know what they're doing, and don't be afraid to knock on their door, so to speak, and just say, I want to learn from you. Every book I've ever read that's impacted me, I've gotten hold of the authors. I've gotten hold of the John Maxwell, Jack Canfield's Chicken Soup for the Soul. He and I are great friends, because I pursue those people to say, and they love that. Because I got students to do the same thing. They love somebody that's going to go in there and say, what are you doing? What are you doing right? And then, as you and I know, follow their instructions. We've got to be the good student too.
Of course.
Otherwise, we can't be the good teacher.
I love the fact that you find these specialists, these niches, these strategies, and then you do them yourself. You perfect them. You create the revenue. You create the success. And then you go out and you teach others to do it. And I believe not only is that a good business model, right, because you practice what you preach, but you also making an impact in the world.
Absolutely.
And speaking of making an impact, so you support a couple nonprofit organizations and charities, right? You're a philanthropist and you're giving back. Kind of share a little bit about the importance as an entrepreneur to be giving back.
I'm glad you asked that question, because this is something that comes up a lot. You can't do good unless you're doing good for yourself. And one of the things, the byproducts of being successful financially, it's allowed me to do some wonderful things for my family and for other people. But, as I've been traveling around the world, and I've traveled, that's my big passion. I've traveled around the world over 25 times. I've been to every continent except for Antarctica, although that's on my schedule.
Wow.
And I'm getting my master's in photography, and I've been to Africa several times, 3 times, Asia a bunch, the Asian countries, all over. But you meet people that don't have what we have. And I'm going to talk about, again, I don't want to wave the flag, but anybody that gets hung up on America and the lack of opportunity needs to go live somewhere and just really experience what real people go through. I've slept in somebody's house who had dirt floor and had the most incredible experience, and they were just so happy. Our last trip to Africa, we literally had a overused statement, a once in a lifetime opportunity. It was, tail end of pandemic. We were the only people in the Serengeti. Our 5 trucks were the only people there.
Wow.
I know these guides. I've known them really well. They have houses, they have cars, they have families. They hadn't had a paycheck in 14 months. They don't have unemployment. They don't have PPP. And so immediately we got together with everybody there and we said, okay, what can we do right now to make an impact on this group? Well, not only that, there's a charity organization there, these women, the Maasai warrior wives put together. They were selling trinkets and beads and some incredible stuff. And they raised so much money over the years that they put a school together and a clinic. Nobody came by their place to buy anything for a year either.
Wow.
And so, to me, with my influence of the people and what I can do, I'm going, wait a second, I can just go to my audience and say, here's some people, and they don't need a lot. I mean, we raised like $9,000, I think, in 2 days. And it was enough to get all of their kids through school and make sure everybody's rent was paid to get them through till November of that year.
Wow.
So we knew that everything was going to be opened up by that point.
Yeah.
But it also, those types of things, like with your charity down in Medellin, I'm like, I have a big connection with family down in Medellin. And I'm like, that's what I love being, but I don't like to just go here.
Yes.
I want to be here and be in it and see the impact. Because there's some big organizations out there, and it's not that I don't want to help them, it's not the impact that I want. I want to be able to, like I say with my real estate, I want to be able to taste the dirt, lick the paint, really get in there, and because that's an emotional tie. And you can't replace that. And there's so many things. So one of the things I've done is getting my social media cranked up and that following. When I do find those places out there that we do, because I'm traveling all the time. I've got Mongolia coming up. We've got, we're back to Africa in March again. We've got some just incredible places that we go to. Every time you go through, there's some impact that you can make.
Of course.
What I don't want to do is have that impact go through a bunch of chains to get there.
Got it.
So what we're developing, like you have with Medellin, is just being able to go, this money is going right here with no red tape.
And experience that direct impact.
Experience that direct impact. And then you've got friends for life. There is nothing more rewarding than traveling the world and having friends all over the place. When they see something on the news and they WhatsApp you and say, are you okay? You're like, well, the news is making a big deal about it,
I know exactly what
you
you're
know
talking
what I mean?
about. Yes.
It's flooding, but that's 1,400 miles away, type of a deal. But, the impact is huge. And I think that, most Americans, I'm not going to beat up on Americans, but I just don't think, sometimes we get a little complacent. And when you get there and you realize that some of these people, I was in Rwanda, hiking. God, we went 6 hours hiking with machetes, going up to the silverbacks. But just the experience through Rwanda after their whole ordeal back in the 90s and looking at what had happened there, my whole goal of that trip was not just to photograph the gorillas, which was phenomenal and life-changing, was to really find out what happened. Because I've read so much. I'm a big buff of history, and I read all the books. I've been to Argentina and seen what's happened there, Cambodia, and all these things. And there's similarities in all of this. There's similarities in the patterns that happen with these people, and a lot of it's just communication or lack thereof, the stifling of it. The radio thing that happened in Rwanda was just heartbreaking. But you know what the impact of Rwanda was for me? I was in restaurants, I was in hotels, I had a driver, and all these people, I wasn't reading a history book, I was talking to them. And they were talking about the impact it had with them. It's what I talk about, And so I'm looking at, again, you just start going, okay, what can I do, my little small self, to make something happen and happen quickly like that? And that's the whole impact of having a community of people that are following me, doing real estate deals and the crypto and the retirement and the stock trading and all of these things that you're doing. I know you and I talked about maybe even putting like an inner circle together where people get to go on these trips with us and have a little bit of education and a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. A lot of fun, a lot of impact, a lot of giving back.
Yeah.
I love that you're a socially conscious entrepreneur, that you have all these different variety of programs to help other people out there create wealth and give back to others. So if people want to connect with you, they want to learn about your conferences, your seminars, your workshops, get a copy of your book, get some coaching or your mastermind, what's the best way for them to do that?
Real simple. All you have to do is go to my personal website, which is Saen360.com. Now, Saen is Saen 360.com. And everything is there. Literally all my social media hookups, any new books I've got, any conferences I've got. So if you're a TikTok or a YouTube or an Instagram, just click on that and you're good to go. So that's Saen, Saen 360.com.
I love it. Well, Saen, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks
I really
for having
appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on this episode of today's Premier Experts. I'm your host, Ray Perez, reminding you to never leave for tomorrow what you can do today and always stay true to your brand. If you or anyone you know is an expert in a particular niche or industry, we would love to have a conversation about potentially being on the show. Just visit todayspremierexperts.com, click on Be a Guest, and fill out the form.